Hello and welcome back to Crypto Kid Podcast. Today I have a special guest, the CTO of Atlas Reality. And why don't you give us a little brief history about you and how you started the company?
Yes, sir. So my name is Beau Button. I've been in the software field for 30 something years. I started when I was 8 years old, quite honestly, before high speed internet and well before Web 3. I can assure you that, like Web 0, maybe point 0.5. But we started the company originally as Cerberus Interactive, as a video game development studio, building games for other companies. And about a year into that venture, we pivoted and started building our own games. And then about a year ago, we rebranded as Atlas Reality for a multitude of reasons. No one could spell Cerberus or pronounce Cerberus, so we just felt like Atlas Reality was a better play. And of course, the abbreviations were AR, similar to augmented reality. But yeah, I mean, we started the business with the idea of building games for folks, and we ultimately pivoted, and now we're building games for ourselves and for our players.
Awesome, awesome. I hear you have a lot of neat projects going on, and especially with real estate and selling on the game app.
Yeah, I mean, our core kind of focus has always been location-based games. I'd be lying if I said we weren't inspired by Niantic and their success with Pokemon Go. And even before Pokemon Go, Niantic had seen a pretty, high level of success with a game called Ingress. For those who are not familiar with like this genre of location-based games, quite literally, you have to walk around, go outside, and navigate in reality. But our first game was sort of a strategy game, kind of an amalgamation between Pokemon Go and Clash of Clans.
Mm-hmm.
It was a commercial success. We learned a lot. It was our first game with our own IP in house. And then our second game, which is the game that you mentioned, which is a virtual real estate game, is called Atlas Earth. That's by far the most successful title that we've built in house, and that's where most of our energy is being focused right now.
Now, can you use it on desktop or is it both for on your D apps or just
No, right now we're off chain, so there's really nothing you can do on the web today. We
mhm.
do have a web application component in the works for a multitude of reasons. One of which is we've run amok of some of Apple's terms of services, specifically for our merchant program. As everybody's probably well aware, Apple, even when it comes to Web3, they just recently updated their terms as, what their stance is on governing NFT sales.
Mhm.
In a similar kind of vein, they basically denied our application for merchant rewards. So we're bringing all of that to the web, so our iOS users can, basically participate in that. You won't necessarily play the game on the web, but it'll be a companion application where you can manage the land and you can do several other things that make sense on a desktop versus, a mobile phone.
Awesome, awesome. I can't wait for that to actually drop out. I have a I have my one of my mentors. He's a little bit older gentleman and he wants to get into the metaverse and he's in the real estate and in actual reality. And he's like, "Man, I've been doing some study on Web3 and I want to buy a shoe store in the metaverse." And I was like, "You will. Just give us some time."
Yeah, I
So,
mean, look, I have no doubt that these decentralized plays, these, on-chain Web3 virtual real estate platforms, they will stick. And internally at Atlas Reality, even though Atlas Earth is off-chain, we are very active and heavily investing in our Web3 strategy. But you will find a need for cosmetics, and if his desire is to own a shoe store, maybe he owns a brick and mortar, maybe he's a cobbler or something like that in real life. There's going to be a need, and quite frankly, that need's been around for a very long time, even before we called this the metaverse. I remember playing, Second Life, and if you needed something specialized, there were people, there were, artisans in the game making things in 3D and adding the scripting, to make them interactive. So this is a little different because if you buy it or if you own the store, you can actually make money and pay bills with it. Although you have to go through tokenomics and all that jazz. But yeah, that's interesting. Does he have a shoe store in real life? I'm just curious why someone would want a shoe store.
no, he has a bunch of real estate properties and rentals and Airbnbs. So he was just trying to come up with a new niche for
Cool,
Web3.
cool. No, look. Sneakers are, I mean, I have friends that collect them. As you can see behind me, I collect video game consoles, but those things can get expensive. So it makes sense for him to want to, get in, on the action before it kind of, gets too hot.
Mine would be a coffee shop. I just
Yeah.
think
Coffee
so.
shop. I mean, look, any place where people can socialize. I haven't really connected the dots between like what's going to motivate me personally to put on a headset or even on my mobile phone. Like I'm sitting here next to an Oculus Pro, Oculus Quest Pro, and I've been playing with it. Full immersion is magical, but like I'm trying to figure out like where would I want to be in the metaverse? Like what I'm not going to be at a coffee shop. If I need caffeine, I'm going to go to Starbucks or some boutique coffee shop and actually get real caffeine. But as a developer or a technologist, I find myself compelled to like go to meeting rooms and have whiteboards with people maybe I would never, meet in person and kind of just pontificate about software architecture and things like that. So it's definitely an interesting concept, but not everybody, it's not a one size fit all. Like what I want out of the metaverse is probably very different than what you want out of the metaverse. And that's something that we'll need to, accommodate.
Now, are you applying NFTs to your to Atlas Earth?
There's no plans right now to bring Atlas Earth on chain. There's a multitude of reasons, one of which is the barrier to entry right now for any
Okay.
DApp is real high. And our kind of special sauce is user acquisition and low friction first time user experiences, which aren't in the matrix when you describe Web3 at all. So we are building a new game. It's kind of in the ideation phase right now. We just received our provisional patent for our use of NFTs in the game. It's a very unique
Okay.
way of using NFTs. But long story short, no, not for Earth, but for the next game that we build, it will indeed leverage NFTs.
Amazing. Now, would that be one of the ways you define Web3 and the metaverse?
Me personally, no. I don't think Web3 or the metaverse it's often spoken about in the same context as like it's blockchain, it's smart contracts, this decentralized distributed ledger. I like to take a step back from all of that. That's just new technology. It's the evolution of the internet. There is a huge push in certain communities for decentralization for various reasons. But me personally, what I think and how I describe Web3 is players or social media users or just consumers will have equity in what it is that they're doing. So like right now they are the currency. If you're not paying for a product, you are the product. And I think the evolution of the internet is consumers will have some type of skin in the game. And if that is, NFTs in your wallet that you can then bring to OpenSea and liquidate to, earn cash, then great. But it doesn't demand that. There are so many other rails out there that could facilitate that have been around for much longer than blockchain. Um, uh, our goal is to use what we're familiar with and what end users are familiar with. But I do think the evolution in the future is we will be on chain because it just makes sense. Why have a bunch of different independent silos or walled garden systems that don't communicate with one another? Why not leverage an L1 or L2 chain that allows portability of assets? So I'm in the middle on all of that, but it doesn't require it at all.
Okay. Now, where do you see play to earn now, and where do you think it's going to be in the future?
That's a tough one. Quite honestly, there have been a few, I mean, very large, successful companies in the play to earn space. Um, the one that I think most people associate with play to earn is Axie Infinity. I was never a fan of their model. I felt like it was they were taking advantage of the Filipino people. It was just the way it all kind of was structured was predatory, in my personal opinion. But there's been some success in the play to earn. I think, quite frankly, even though we're off chain, we're still in that genre. We have players earning 20, 30, $40 a month. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot of money, and it's really not in the grand scheme of things, but I think right now we're still trying to figure out, what does it look like from a business model perspective? It's relatively complicated and it's new. I think in the future we'll see more games leverage these types of play to earn mechanics and share some equity with the players, whether that be NFTs that they can sell in the secondary market, where it's tokens, or in our case, fiat. We pay them cash. I think that it's here to stay. I don't think this is something that's a fad.
Yeah, I right now, like just talking to all my close friends, they're saying that cash is king and they just don't listen to me about cryptocurrency or blockchain technology when it comes to earning money because their biggest argument is that it's not backed by anything. And also, I was talking to my coworker the other day and he was just like, I don't trust it because we just went through a hurricane and all the electricity went out. He's like, no one was able to go to the ATM and get cash. They had to already have cash on hand. So I think people would feel much comfortable with just having actual money.
I mean, there's certainly a percentage of the population. I don't know what it is, but my mom is relatively old school, and she kind of operates on that same, under that same mindset, which is I like cash. And now we're seeing a lot of merchants going cashless, where they don't even take cash. I'm not afraid of a digital first economy. I use my debit card with contactless. I use my phone with, NFC contactless. So if that's being powered by the Visa or MasterCard rails or a blockchain, I don't care, nor does the merchant. Your friends that have concerns about, I guess the volatility of the crypto market. Look, all of the markets are manipulated, and they're not being manipulated by folks like us. They're being manipulated to some degree by large corporations, large, token holders, etc. It doesn't matter what we do. If there's money to be made, there's someone that's going to try to fight to have power and control, even if it's decentralized. So yeah, I mean, I understand where they're coming from and I respect that, but I'm not afraid to use Bitcoin if a merchant, accepts Bitcoin and I feel like using Bitcoin. But more often than not, I'm pulling out a credit card and I'm just using NFC. But it is confusing. It is very confusing. Like, why does BTC go up and down? Why does ETH go up and down? Um, you know, can people answer that same question about the dollar or stock markets? Like, there's a lot going into this. It's not a simple problem, but as a consumer, the trust right now, in my personal opinion, is with traditional rails, which are your banking systems and your credit and debit cards that people are familiar with and they trust.
Dude, I was trying to buy a vehicle about 6 months ago, and I was trying to wire them money, like fiat cash, and they didn't want to do it. And I was just trying to figure out why. And so I talked to my roommate, and he was just like, they're probably worried about you canceling the payment. I was like, I'm not gonna cancel a payment to get a vehicle. So
Yeah, I mean, look, dealers are really sketchy when it comes to buying cars outright, which is kind of counterintuitive. Everybody thinks like, well, if you can get a loan and that loan's interest rate is, 4%, but you feel like you can take your money and earn 10%, then you'd be better off getting a loan, paying the 4%. But most dealers make more money not on the initial sale, but on the basis points for financing. So I've had actually one of my old business partners tried to do the same thing, but with cash. Like, he walked in there almost, it felt like he was a drug dealer of some sort. And it wasn't like he was buying a Ferrari. It was no, not an Accord. I think it was a relatively reasonable car. And they're like, oh no, we can't take cash. We can't do this. We need a certified. I mean, I was kind of taken aback, but yeah, they are afraid of you canceling. I mean, in our world, we see players on a daily basis make $100 purchase in the Apple App Store and then basically contact Apple, and I've seen every excuse under the rainbow. I was taking prescription medications and I didn't mean to do it. My 3-year-old daughter inadvertently did it, but I get where they're coming from. But I'm not sure that blockchain. I mean, it's not reversible in that sense, but just think about the person that you spoke to at the dealership. Do you think they understand like crypto and Web3 and like all of the nuances? I doubt it. They probably don't understand ACH and credit or debit yet. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
thank you for clearing that for me. And I know we got off the metaverse. So let's get back into it.
Yes, sir.
Where do you see consumers spending the most time in the metaverse now and down the line?
I mean, to be blunt, they aren't in the metaverse right now. Very few people are in the metaverse right now. If you want to use like the industry's definition of the metaverse, um, again, my definition is for Web3 and the metaverse, it's just the, basically innovation that we're seeing on the tech side, but it's the evolution of the internet. So, when I started, it was desktop with dial up, and then gradually, when the first iPhone came out, I mean, we had phones prior to the iPhone, but it was flip phones with very limited connectivity options, but you could play games, send emails, etc. And then we had mobile phones, then we had tablets, and now we have AR and VR. I do not consider the metaverse a AR or VR or XR exclusive experience, meaning I don't think the metaverse will ever require a headset. You may be able to leverage some interesting functionality with, let's say Apple's AR glasses or an Oculus Quest, or, whoever comes out with a new headset. So I'm pretty certain that players or consumers are going to interact with the metaverse through their mobile phone. And if you think about the experiences that we're seeing today, like Sandbox and Decentraland, their mobile experience is bad. They're a web-based platform, they're desktop. So I don't I don't imagine, me personally, I'm not going to log in and go into some three-dimensional world just to chat with my friends. I'm sure there's a large audience for that. Like, I've used VR chat, Rec Room, I've played them all. It's cool. So, I mean, where they are now is nowhere to be seen. No one's really playing. If you look at the number of people that are on the internet versus how many people are in these metaverse experiences, there's no comparison. But I do believe that's going to, change over the next probably 10 years. Like, that's the time horizon that my brain's kind of like wrapped its head around, which is, all right, so the technology that we have access to today, if you want to build a fully immersive, interactive 3D experience, you have to be a developer, and that's not cool because there are a lot of creative people that aren't developers, but they know how to do, 3D modeling or animation or audio or whatnot. So I think over the next 2, 3 years, we're going to start seeing more platforms to allow user generated metaverses, and brands will jump on that. So brands might have, instead of having somebody who's doing their videos for Facebook and TikTok, just using Adobe Premiere, they'll have somebody using these tools to build these metaverse experiences. But I do believe they're going to be in 3D to some degree. I appreciate that, but I don't believe people are going to be walking around with Oculuses or AR headsets everywhere. They're too expensive, and quite honestly, you can't stay in it for very long before you get sick. So that was kind of an indirect answer to your question. I mean, like I said, today they're really not in the metaverse. In the future, I think it's going to be a combination of the devices that we use today, desktop, mobile, and AR, VR, XR.
My former roommate, he talked a lot about VRs, and he was showing me some websites and things that you could use VR for. And I was like, and then I hear when the metaverse came out, I was like, isn't that like the metaverse? That was my speculation of it. And I thought they kind of like they went together in a sense.
It does. So VR augments, no pun intended, or enhances the experience that people are calling a metaverse experience, which is, it's a game. I mean, it's not, the metaverse is not a game, but we're leveraging game engines. We're building these 3D, fully interactive, fully immersive technologies, experiences. If you've never used an Oculus Quest or any, HTC Vive to play a VR game, it will change the way you think about all of this. It is just as empowering or impactful as it was the first time I saw my iPhone that I bought, the first generation iPhone, before they even had a developer, extensibility model, like where you could build your own apps for iPhone. I bought the iPhone, and having gone from a flip phone, I was just looking at this thing thinking, holy crap, this is the future. The minute you put on one of these headsets, even if you're not a developer, if you're a developer, your brain's going to instantly start saying, how in the hell do I do this? How does this work? As a consumer, you start thinking, well, hell, this is how I'm going to interact with things in the future.
Mhm.
And there's applications today where you can, have a shared whiteboard session with a coworker or anybody. You can sit across from somebody in a table in a game, which, again, game, metaverse, three-dimensional experience, that line's going to blur. And truly, this is going to become the internet. Now, I don't believe the internet's going to be exclusively 3D in the future, but I think a lot of what we'll be doing will probably be in 3D.
Okay. Yeah, and it took me down the rabbit hole too. So there's been some case studies of people actually just spending all their time on it, and it causes problems with the cognitive too. And I'm
Yeah,
just,
look, I don't think it's any different than, as a parent, the phrase that schools use is screen time. Some schools will try to help you limit your child's screen time. I think it is a healthy thing, but I grew up in front of a screen and I'm 39. So this idea of screen time and limited use, and it's not new, but like I'm not joking. There's probably I can count since I was 8 years old, I don't think there's been a single day, maybe one or two here and there, where I haven't looked at some screen. If I'm not sitting in front of a screen writing software, I'm either in front of my phone. So I do believe we need to learn and study the impact on the brain. We're too quick as a society to just jump to like, oh shit, this is the next thing since like the best thing since sliced bread. But me personally, it's not so much I think it impacts my cognitive abilities. I'm not in it long enough to even like to witness that, but it is nauseating at times. And I'm not one who gets motion sickness. Now, this new Oculus Quest Pro is better. I think it handles it better. But yeah, I don't want to, promote technology that's going to basically suck the life out of our young, children. But I think there's going to need to be a balance that strike, just like screens today and iPads.
mhm. I remember growing up, my mom always used to yell at me saying, "You're sitting too close to the TV, back up." So,
It's funny now, but the same thing that my mom would say is you spend too much time on the internet. She's in her 70s and now she's spending 10 hours on the internet doing all kinds of stuff. And when I come to her house, she's 3 inches away from the screen because she can't see. So it's funny, everything they told us not to do in their older age, they have to do. But
mhm.
no, it is kind of a roundabout thing.
Okay. Now, with all this new technology coming out, how do you feel about regulations? And are you worried about the government taking control?
All right. So I know this is a hot topic like privacy and Big
Mhm,
Brother and the government. I'm not personally afraid of the government. I know there's bad actors. There's bad actors in everything out there.
mhm,
I'm not one to polarize left, right, first, etc. But regulations, specifically for consumer protection, as a consumer, as someone who's had to file complaints. You've got the Better Business Bureau and you've got all of these other things like the FDIC insurance that you get by having, a bank account with Chase, JP Morgan or something like that. Consumers need that. And right now, the Web3 space is unregulated and there's no protection. We're seeing this left and right. I'm for regulation. Now, I'm not one where I want them to manage everything and I have no freedom. We do have to strike a balance, but I'm absolutely for regulation, for consumer protection. I'm not overly concerned about the government seeing the money that I move. I earn it. I work my ass off to earn it. I put it in a checking account, and at the end of the day, I have nothing to hide from them. I know a lot of people don't feel that same way, but
mhm.
um, that's just my perspective on it.
Mine too. Mine too. Now, what's your target audience for your company?
Well, for Atlas Earth, our demographic right now, we did part of that. This just kind of happened. We run ads on different social media platforms, and initially you don't control who responds to those ads, but we do know now who's responding to those ads, and the majority of our end users are going to be young, males. So I mean, that's our demographic. Me personally, as a partner in the company, I'm not targeting young children or teenagers. I think this platform is aligned with individuals that are 18 and above, that have a checking account, that have some free time, that are interested in passive income. It is a video game, so it's not like it's an investment platform, but I do want to take what we have today, this platform and our user base, it's over 1 million users, and somehow weave in financial literacy, educating people about how to save and where to go on the internet to sign up and set up a brokerage account so you can take the money that you may have and grow it securely, rather than investing in Dogecoin and Elon Musk tweets one thing and you lose your life savings. But right now it's pretty much anybody who has a checking account that has some spare time, that is interested in virtual real estate, I think we'll narrow that down just a tad bit. But there's nothing in the game that would prohibit someone, a female versus a male, or anybody who's older versus younger, from playing it. But we're very clearly attracting younger males that are looking for passive income, that have some free time on their hands.
I applaud you for that because in high school, especially in the public school system, they really don't teach you things that you need to know when you graduate and things to prepare you for adulthood, which I think they should because
No, look, I went through public school as well, and I was pretty much a self-taught person. It sounds silly saying that, having gone through 12 years of school. Now, I didn't teach myself like in pre-K and kindergarten, but I'd say around that sixth grade level, the teacher's effectiveness in the Louisiana public school systems just went to hell in a handbasket. And I was very fortunate that I was intellectually prepared to just take the book home, read what I needed to read, and understand it, and ask questions, etc. Not everybody can learn like that, but they didn't teach me anything about financial literacy. We had an economics class. We talked about all kinds of macro things, but they didn't talk about, well, what does your first paycheck look like? What the hell is FICA? What are these components? Like, I know so many young kids get their first paycheck and they're just depressed at how much money goes to the government. But and that's like step one. But like step two is well, if you take 10%, 20% of your paycheck and put it in, a high interest yield checking account or something like that, in 10 years, it could be 100,000. Like, if they would have just had those very candid conversations, I think a lot more people would be financially sound right now, but they're not. And look, there's a lot of other outside factors. I'm not saying it's just the education component. You do need to work hard, you need to save, you need a budget and things like that. But that's where it should have started, instead of like even in college. Like, obviously that's not the focus of college. It's you learn this shit literally in real life. You just learn it the hard way, and that's not a good situation for most people.
exactly and exactly when I first got my check with my construction job, I was just like, what are taxes? And like so a large, I feel like a large portion to me was taken out, and I was just like, this is not even right. I was like, I worked hard for this, and I'm giving it to Uncle Sam. So it's just like,
Well, look, that sentiment is what I think powers or drives most of the distrust in our government today. It's like, where does that money go? As a citizen, we speak with our votes. Like today, everybody go out and vote, please, regardless of your party. Go out and vote and do your civic duty. But I've always kind of like fantasized about this web-based system where, yes, we pay into the taxes, the tax system, but as consumers, we can say, I think our defense budget should be less and we should increase our education budget. Now, you can do that indirectly through voting, but I'm not entirely sure that it works the way that I want it to work. But yeah, I remember my first paycheck as well, and I was shocked. I was just like, man, and it was back in the day when I don't know what minimum wage was, $5 or something an hour. So, $40 was a tremendous amount of money. And when you're looking at your taxes every paycheck, you're like, holy hell, man, this is and when you're young, you don't really think that, like, well, what do I need from the government? Well, the roads, the lights, like the public services, all that is you need from the government. But it takes you a long time, as you grow and as you mature as an adult, to really fully appreciate what it is that those tax dollars do for you. But I'm still not convinced that even 50% of it's going to where it needs to go. A lot of it's wasted, misappropriated, etc. And that can be depressing when you just think about it. But it's a big issue that not one person can solve.
now you talked about like this educational and finances. Is there going to be like a verification factor, like that way people don't have multiple usernames per se, or making sure you're actually giving the money to the person that's supposed to have it?
Yeah, right now, our terms of service, we just recently updated them to kind of reflect, learn, our the lessons we learned in delivering this game, and the community and working with our lawyers. Um, we don't have an obligation to the IRS or anybody to report if you withdraw $5 or $20. And we do need to strike a balance between, what we think needs to be governed or regulated, versus like what's going to introduce too much friction. So right now, we do not have a KYC process because there's no crypto play. Not that KYC is unique to crypto. It's obviously more prevalent in crypto platforms because crypto unfortunately gets a bad rap and is often used for laundering and things of that nature. But we don't have any plans today to make KYC mandatory. We do have plans as people approach the $600 IRS 1099 like contractor threshold. We will provoke them to enter in their EIN, or rather their SSN and address, so we can send them a 1099. But yeah, it's something that we're still trying to evolve, and we're still trying to figure out where it makes sense. We just don't want to increase the friction. So there is a balance that needs to be kind of strike.
Now, does that have to do with leveraging the locality of the aspect?
When you say locality, like we're only in the United States right now.
Okay.
Um, and from our understanding, having worked with a bunch of attorneys, both on the tax side, the Web3 side, and just securities, the U.S. is the most strict and has the most well-defined process. So we're moving forward into other countries under the assumption that, and we're doing our due diligence. Like for instance, one of the countries we're entertaining is Australia. And as a company paying, contractors or gamers in Australia, the onus is actually on the taxpayer, so the person receiving the funds. So it's easier for us to operate in Australia because we don't have to file any paperwork with their local, revenue system. I don't even know what the hell it's called in Australia. It's not the IRS, but the equivalent in Australia. So it will be dependent on locality. A lot of the game will be balanced differently as we move out into other countries, et cetera, based on the ad revenue that we receive. For instance, ads in India don't pay as well as ads in the United States. So if the game
Mhm.
is, basically leveraging the ad revenue to fund some of the virtual rent, if we're not getting as much for ad revenue, we need that to be, accommodated in our model for virtual rent in those countries. So yeah, it's going to be relatively dynamic. We're not growing in. We want to go to other countries, but because of these kind of like obstacles, we have to do it very methodically.
Okay. Now, since you're talking about obstacles, is that the biggest problem that your team is facing, and how are you trying to resolve that? Like, what are you trying to do?
Yeah, no, it's honestly, this is a good problem. But I always joke as the CTO, this is the reason I don't have any hair. I literally sweat pure cortisol, the stress hormone. Now I'm built for this. My body may not think I'm built for it, but my brain's built for this. But our biggest problem today is scale. When you're engineering a product, you have to, there's a triangle like speed, quality, and cost. So we built this product, this platform over the course of 5 months, which is incredible compared to what it took to build our first game, which was 2 years. So I can't say we cut corners, but we time to market was the metric we were focusing on. Let's get this thing shipped out the door. Let's get it in the hands of customers. And doing that, we didn't focus a lot of time on stress testing the system and making sure that it would like stay online under load. So we've had some pretty big blunders as it relates to stability. Thankfully, our community is very forgiving and they understand that even if our system offline, they're still accruing virtual rent. But the biggest problem right now that we're facing is most definitely a technical challenge. We've got the right personnel and we know what we need to do, but we have to do it while the system's online, and that's presenting a unique challenge. It's not new. Every tech company has gone through some type of growth technical challenge, but right now that is, as a company, as the CTO, that's on the forefront of my mind, is scaling the human side of the business, getting the right talent in the door to help us move past this, and then we'll start adding features. But all of these legal obstacles, quite frankly, we're working or we're partnering with big law firms that have way more experience than any one, internal counsel could ever have. So I'm very comfortable with that side. But finding the right engineers, growing the team, maintaining the culture, and actually getting things done, that's the biggest problem we have. And I hate the word problem. That's where we're focusing most of our energy, but I'm absolutely confident that we'll get through it.
With every problem, there's a solution.
Most definitely, man. Most definitely, there is a solution, and I don't know many young folks that like are perseverance. Like, I don't give up. And this is a personality trait that everybody who knows me will, I have no doubt if you ask them, they would agree, is like, you just don't give up. You just have to look at it. You don't get depressed. You just keep working. You will eventually come up with a solution. You may need to pull in more people. You may need to raise more money. You may need to do that. But right now, we're financially sound. So, outside of the technical obstacles, like secondary to that is hiring, qualified engineers that fit in with, our culture. And that's just time and practice. I've hired, probably no less over the course of the last 15 years, 200 people. And you kind of, it's like a musical instrument. You get in tune with people and you can tell almost off the bat if they're going to be a good fit or not. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to know how to write software. That's the hard part, but I'm less inclined to give them these challenging interview questions than I am to just get them on the team and see what they can do kind of deal. But yeah, that's where we are, obstacle wise.
So we're getting close to any time. Is there anything you would like to share, like any news that's about to happen before we end the show?
No, I mean, there's not a whole lot of new news. I mean, anybody who plays Atlas Earth, they know that our schedule has been pushed back, but it's all for basically you guys, the players. If anybody's interested in learning about Atlas Reality or Atlas Earth, you can just go to atlasearth.com or atlasreality.com. But yeah, nothing major before the end of this year. I think where we're really going to make a huge splash is Q1 2023. We've
Okay.
got the right team. We know what we need to focus on, and we've got some pretty exciting things that we'll be announcing and rolling out um, behind schedule. But quite honestly, I've been doing software my entire life. Software estimations are BS. It's hard, but yeah, that's basically it. Nothing major this year, but Q1 2023 we'll have some pretty impressive things to roll out for our players, and hopefully we'll get more. And people who listen to your podcast will jump on. And if you have questions, you can find me on LinkedIn.
All right. And all those will be in the description down below. Hey, man, I wish you the best with your endeavors, and I'll see you in the future.
Yes, sir. It was a pleasure. You take care, brother.
You too, man. See ya.
Bye-bye.